Barbra Streisand has never been shy about her colossal talent, her firm convictions, or her outspoken presence in show business. For more than 6 decades, she has cultivated a career that is all but unprecedented. Thousands of awards, legendary performances, best-selling albums, and an impact that spans several generations. Now, at 83, Streisand has come to the place in her life where honesty is more important than tact. She has no need to sugarcoat experience or round off her corners for others. She reports with the precision of hindsight and the force of a woman who emerged intact from an industry where others sought to silence her. In a recent interview, she mused on the numerous collaborations she has undertaken or nearly undertaken during her career. As she toasted the magical collaborations that enabled her to produce enduring work, she also revealed the other side of the tale, the collaborations that never materialized, the artists that she just could not work with. Streisand named the 7 musicians who populate her personal blacklist, and as always, her reasons for each are acerbic, intimate, and incisive. The first of whom she named was none other than Frank Sinatra. To the public at large, this union seemed a given. 2 titans of their time, each possessing a mythical voice, each universally beloved. The thought of them teaming up on a duet had circulated through the business for decades, frequently stoked by record company executives who dreamed of dollar signs and tabloid headlines. But behind the closed studio doors, the story was a very different one. Streisand described Sinatra's controlling studio style as making it impossible to work with him. He'd come in and want everything to be about him. No compromise allowed, she reminisced, remembering how his style conflicted completely with hers. Sinatra thought in terms of raw emotion, catching lightning in a bottle with 1 or 2 takes, but Streisand worked in a highly refined, deliberate, and meticulous way. He thought I was overproducing. I thought he was hurrying genius. Their sole serious foray in the early 1970s was a disaster. Sinatra showed up late, rejected her meticulously prepared arrangement, and insisted the key be changed on the spot. When she politely stood firm, he seethed with hostility. It wasn't even ego, it was about dominance. He had to show he was in charge, she recalled. The recording session was cut short when Sinatra would not harmonize over one section, grumbled that it wasn't his style, and quit in a rage. They never returned to the project. Aside from music, Streisand said she always felt belittled when she was with Sinatra. His remarks about her voice, looks, and drive carried with them threads of sexism that hung heavily on her. It was as if going back in time to a time when women's ambition was something to be feared. They also disagreed politically at a 1960s gala when Sinatra dismissed her activism as Hollywood flack. Streisand explained it succinctly, "Some people don't mix. Frank and I were oil and water. Iconic, yes, but combustible." The second on her list was Elvis Presley, yet another apparently dream couple that very soon soured in reality. In the early 1970s, Streisand and her then-boyfriend John Peters were working on a remake of A Star is Born. Elvis was her first choice before Chris Christopherson was cast for the film. The press hummed with anticipation over the prospect of uniting the king of rock and roll with Streisand, one of show business' greatest voices. She conceded that she was excited by the prospect. "I thought this was a chance to do something truly historic." But her initial encounter with Elvis, which took place at the Las Vegas Hilton where he was performing, destroyed her illusions. Surrounded by his Memphis mafia, Presley appeared to be a man who was emotionally removed. "He hardly looked me in the eye," Streisand remembered. "It was like speaking with a wax figure." She explained feeling as though he was acting the role of Elvis and not living it. Worse, his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, hijacked the meeting with outrageous salary, creative control, and even song ownership demands. Streisand recalled feeling smothered. It wasn't a partnership. It was a hostage negotiation. She saw that Presley was captive by addiction, by fame, by the people who held sway over him, and she sympathized, but she also knew he was not able to provide the sort of partnership she required. "It could have been beautiful," she sighed wistfully, "but you can't build anything when the other person isn't really there." The third, was David Bowie, a man whom she respected far more from a distance, but could not manage in person. Streisand had long been in awe of Bowie's work and his bold transformation of persona, but when they tried to investigate a partnership in the late 1970s, she learned the logistical challenges of working with him. Their initial encounter at a London cafe very quickly showed them they were not compatible. She had arrived ready to talk about tempos, melodies, and arrangements. Bowie, the intuitive philosopher, raved about time being an illusion and the potential existence of parallel universes. It was dazzling but exhausting, she admitted. In the studio, it only got worse. Streisand was linear and precise, and Bowie lived on improvisation and spontaneity. He wanted to feel the room, to let the moment decide, the melody. That sounds lovely in theory, but in reality it was chaos. He changed genres mid-session, from synth-pop to ambient jazz to something completely abstract, leaving her frustrated and lost. Nothing came of the sessions. Ultimately, Streisand still declared Bowie a genius, but conceded their creative visions were incompatible at their core. I was building a bridge, and he was creating a spaceship, she said. Her fourth letdown was Miles Davis. Streisand had immense respect for him as a revolutionary of jazz, an artist whose imagination transformed the sound of contemporary music in perpetuity. But when they were matched up in the late 1980s for a possible record project, respect soon turned to exasperation. Their styles couldn't have been more disparate. Streisand came with precise plans, willing to seek areas of agreement, and Davis rejected all she presented. He scarcely uttered 10 words, she recalled. He waved away her efforts at conversation and treated her as if she didn't exist. The jam sessions were like singing into a void. His contempt hurt more than his remoteness. She attempted to propose Gershwin or Cole Porter, both of whose work she and he admired, but he dismissed it as museum music. It came crashing to an end when Davis cleared out and departed mid-take. Streisand, while wounded, learned her lesson. Brilliance does not translate into harmony. He was brilliant, yes, but unreachable. Sometimes reverence from a distance is the only kind that works. The fifth name was Prince, another whom she had much admired but could not work with. She called him a phenomenon, energizing, bold, and constantly inventive, but also elusive to the point of inaccessibility. Their late 1980s discussions of a possible duet soon became surreal. Prince spoke through mysterious telephone calls, in hushed tones like a mystic, or left her unlabeled cassette tapes with bits of soundscapes. It was like working with someone who was already halfway through a dream, she said. When there was a studio session lined up in Los Angeles, Prince never appeared. Afterwards, he clarified that he was in the midst of a spiritual experience. Streisand understood then that you don't work with Prince, you orbit around him. And I don't orbit anybody. Her sixth conflict was with Eric Clapton. The two tried a collaboration in the early 1990s when Streisand was experimenting with more acoustic textures. Clapton's guitar virtuosity would have been an obvious crossover. But as soon as he stepped into the studio, she could feel his lack of interest. His body was there, his mind wasn't, she remembered. While he was technically brilliant on the guitar, there was no discussion between them. His size, shrugs, and remoteness made it obvious he didn't want to be there. She later discovered he had informed a producer that her music wasn't really his thing. That hurt Streisand, not because he hadn't liked her style, but because he had arrived unprepared to add anything. Music is dialogue, she said, and this was monologue. Lastly, Streisand named Madonna. The world had long wondered whether there was a feud between them, and Streisand validated their tension as being genuine. They embodied different styles of feminine power, Streisand from theatrical tradition, Madonna from pop provocation. There were offers of collaborations over the years, but Streisand always declined. Not because I was intimidated, but because I knew it would be a disaster. Their limited personal interactions validated her suspicions. Madonna's directness was sometimes like disrespect. One evening at dinner, she referred to Streisand as too precious for pop, which Streisand did not interpret as a compliment. Creatively, they were oil and water. Streisand worked and planned painstakingly. Madonna existed in shock and improvisation. I could appreciate her work ethic and still know we'd make bad music together. She admires Madonna's influence, but declares emphatically, "Never once have I regretted not working with her." Some forces simply don't belong in the same room. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Reflecting on these tales, what is most evident is not bitterness, but clarity. Streisand does not nurse grudges. Rather, she interprets these broken partnerships as training in compatibility, respect, and the essence of artistry. At 83, she is finally able to tell the truth. Greatness does not always mean harmony. Every legend cannot share the same stage. Greatness doesn't guarantee harmony, she said. Some people shine best at a distance. With that, Barbra Streisand remains unapologetically herself, fearless, fiercely protective of her artistry, and unafraid to call it like she sees it. Lastly, Streisand named Madonna. The world had long wondered whether there was a feud between them, and Streisand validated their tension as being genuine. They embodied different styles of feminine power. Streisand from theatrical tradition, Madonna from pop provocation. There were offers of collaborations over the years, but Streisand always declined. Not because I was intimidated, but because I knew it would be a disaster. Their limited personal interactions validated her suspicions. Madonna's directness was sometimes like disrespect. One evening at dinner, she referred to Streisand as too precious for pop, which Streisand did not interpret as a compliment. Creatively, they were oil and water. Streisand worked and planned painstakingly. Madonna existed in shock and improvisation. I could appreciate her work ethic and still know we'd make bad music together. She admires Madonna's influence, but declares emphatically, "Never once have I regretted not working with her." Some forces simply don't belong in the same room. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Reflecting on these tales, what is most evident is not bitterness, but clarity. Streisand does not nurse grudges. Rather, she interprets these broken partnerships as training in compatibility, respect, and the essence of artistry. At 83, she is finally able to tell the truth. Greatness does not always mean harmony. Every legend cannot share the same stage. Greatness doesn't guarantee harmony, she said. Some people shine best at a distance. With that, Barbra Streisand remains unapologetically herself, fearless, fiercely protective of her artistry, and unafraid to call it like she sees it.